Now call the business session of the May 18th, 2021 City Council meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. As part of the first phase of the City of Waco reopening process, the City Council is now meeting in person along with limited city staff and following CDC guidance and taking safety precautions. Public participation will remain virtual at this time. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic on March 16th, 2020, the governor suspended various provisions of the Open Meetings Act pursuant to his state of disaster authority. The change was effective March 16th, 2020, until further notice or until the state of disaster declaration expires. While providing as much transparency as possible, this meeting will not be open to the public attending in person and is being broadcast live at wccc.tv. The meeting is being recorded and the video and audio recordings will be made available to the public. According to the governor and attorney general, statutes that may require face-to-face interaction between members of the public and public officials are suspended, provided, however, that the governmental body offers alternative methods of communication with their public officials. This includes public comment on agenda items. In an effort to allow for as much public input as possible, those who wish to speak or submit their written comments on listed agenda items were asked to register with the City Secretary's office by noon today. Individuals who register to speak on an agenda item must limit their comments to 3 minutes. On items other than public hearings, speakers will be allotted 1 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. When called to speak, please state your name for the record. Any person making personal, impertinent, slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the City Council shall be removed if directed by the presiding officer. And now for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is to consider the minutes of the May 4th, 2021 regular council meeting. Are there any corrections? There being no corrections, the minutes will stand approved as presented. We'll next move to a special proclamation of our Waco Youth Council, who I'm so thankful for. So now we would like to take a moment to recognize the following high school seniors who are graduating and that have served as members of the City of Waco Youth Council. Since 1999, the Youth Council has served as an advisory board for our council and represented the youth of our city. Youth Council members serve as ambassadors for our city, addressing community issues, promoting education and involvement, and advising our council and staff. This year, the Youth Council followed the leadership of Councilmember Andrea Bearfield and the Parks and Recreation staff members Eric Fouts and Callie Mendoza. Despite meeting virtually due to COVID-19, these seniors worked with the Youth Council to collect holiday gifts for children in need, participate in food drives, prepare college prep packets, and participate in a cleanup in Cameron Park. We have a special plaque for each of you to take in appreciation for your service. And we have the following seniors that are graduating: Aiden Butler, Hannah Chu, Grant Morrison, Adrian Northcutt, JC Alvarera Perez, and Seth Ortega. Thank you for your service to our community. We are so thankful for your meaningful time and the influence and impact you've had on our town. Councilmember Bearfield, you worked with those students. Is there a couple words you'd like to add?
It is my pleasure to serve as the council liaison for our Waco Youth Council. These are some of the most dynamic and forward-thinking young people I've ever met and engaged with. We will certainly miss our graduating seniors, but know that the City of Waco, along with our city staff, our mayor, and fellow council members, are incredibly proud of you and the accomplishments and the peace that you've left in our fabric. We talk about how we want to encourage people to grow and fly, but Waco is always home. And so as they prepare to go off into this next season, I told them all yesterday, we're preparing for the next us. And so those students who go and grow and exchange, they have had a taste of what it is to function in municipal world. And, JC said he was going to be well, he said first, but I said maybe, Hispanic mayor of Waco. JC said it. And I said, well, come on, bring it then. Come on. And, and those are the things that we love about their energy and their activities in their school, but also dedication to the city of Waco. The college preparatory manual that they prepared, they broke off in subcommittees and prepared this. It is excellent. And so I asked Alec, I said, hey, can you get a copy to every library, to every community center, so it's something that is accessible for all people to be able to see, not just, at their schools, but they have really, really made an indelible mark on this community, and I am incredibly proud of them. I'm excited about the new youth council members that are coming up and our sustaining members that will be able to continue to grow and go with us, not in a pandemic. So please know that I'm a proud mama and have appreciated being affiliated with them over the past 2 years.
Awesome. Thank you, council member. We will now move to public hearing 2021-284. And Kent George from the our Economic Development Program Manager will be making this presentation remotely.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. This is a public hearing on ordinance amending the project financing plan for reinvestment zone number 1 for tax increment financing, TIF zone 1, to consider approving an agreement to provide TIF funds an amount not to exceed $315,000 to Waco Creative Arts Center, Inc., to assist with public improvements, enhanced infrastructure, environmental remediation, and facade improvements associated with the repair and renovation of 701 South 8th Street, and authorizing the city manager to execute any documents necessary to complete these transactions, providing an effective date, providing a saving clause, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance comes to you on first reading. On February 11th, 2021, the Reinvestment TIF Zone 1 for Tax Increment Financing Board of Directors, also known as the TIF Board, voted 7-0 to recommend funding up to $315,000 to Waco Creative Arts Center, Inc., to assist with public improvements, enhanced infrastructure, environmental remediation, and facade improvements associated with the repair and renovation of 701 South 8th Street. As required by law, a notice of this public hearing was published in the Waco Tribune Herald on May 7th, 2021.
And Mayor and Council, as a reminder, Mayor Meek and Council Members Borderin and Palmer have filed affidavits of substantial interest on this item.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Hey, Ken, I do have a question for you. I noticed in the packet that the ask from the Art Center of Waco was $560,000, but staff recommended $315,000, if I'm not mistaken. Why the difference?
Well, Councilman Savito, I would say that the results of that is from the success we've had from the TIF on funding a number of projects that's kind of reduced the fund. So we've got many projects that we've contributed to, and we have plenty in the pipeline that are coming. So we're trying to do our best to spread the money around to all the projects as best we can to make sure that we can provide some support, but we can't necessarily hit the mark for all the requests. But we're doing the best we can. We're also under one of the contributors to the TIF fund rolling out, which will be Waco Independent School District. They'll be rolling out in 2022. So those funds are tight right now. We're having to be really diligent in how we distribute those funds, but we're definitely trying to contribute where we can.
And I know staff and you do a great job of recommending a certain percentage based on the overall cost of the project. So the 315, it's 14% of the project?
It came down to about 10%. And one of the other reasons this project didn't get full request is because they're not generating the increment that they'll be putting back into the fund. This was kind of a donation, if you will, because we're not receiving any kind of property tax back or increment back from the development.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That's what I was wondering.
Any other questions for staff? We will now open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, did anyone register to speak on this item?
We did. We had a Miss Lisa Monroe, and I can promote her as a panelist.
Great.
Ms. Monroe, are you on the line? Ms. Monroe?
Sorry, there you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi.
Hey, how are you,
Thank
Lisa?
you, guys. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for considering this. We, as the Art Center of Waco, are so grateful for Kent George. He has done a phenomenal job to guide us through this process. And as you know, we've been on this journey for a while. And Council, we're so grateful for you to consider this. And I just am here if you guys have any questions at all.
Any questions for Ms. Monroe?
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, great to see you.
Thank you, you too.
Esmeralda, did anyone else register to speak?
No, sir.
All right, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Palmer?
No, she doesn't vote.
Oh, Boderoot? Been a crazy night, sorry. Fairfield?
Yes.
Sabito?
Yes.
All right, the motion carries, and we'll move on to public hearing 2021-285. And Clint Peters, our Development Services Director, will be making this presentation remotely.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution approving the following subdivision plats. Final plat and construction plans of the Lakes at University Parks Edition, Phase 4. Final plat and construction plans of the Deer Valley Estates Edition. And final plat and construction plans of the Deem Family Edition. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended that the plats and construction plans be approved.
Are there any questions for staff? We will now open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, did anyone register to speak?
Yes, Jacob Bell registered to speak, but he said he's available in the event you have questions.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Bell?
Nope.
Anyone else register to speak?
No, sir.
We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Palmer?
Aye.
Boderoot?
Yes.
Fairfield?
Yes.
Sabito?
Yes.
Meek?
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move on to public hearing 2021-286.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Body Investments LLC to extend the hours of operation and allow retail sales between the hours of 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. in an 03 zoning district on property described as Lot A, Block 2 of the Howardale Edition, known as 1014 North Valley Mills, Suite B. By a vote of 9-1, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. That the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, that the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area which is located, that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception, and that available community facilities and services, including the road system, providing access to the proposed use are adequate for the proposed use. And this recommendation does include conditions as well.
Any questions for staff?
Hey, Clint, I know we talked about this during work session, but really the only thing that's changing with this is the hours of operation for the existing business. So if there was another business, or if there was a change that the business wanted to make to sell that's not permitted under the 03 rezoning process, they have to come to council for approval.
That's correct. I think the concern from staff, Plan Commission, and then one of the neighbors was that this potentially would open it up to a smoke shop, and that would not be allowed under the current zoning.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, sir.
This is Holmes Clinton, and you were making that a condition, right, that it is not that will not become a smoke shop?
That's correct. That's a condition in the special permit as well as the 03 zoning district.
Right, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak?
No, sir.
We'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval based on staff findings and conditions.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Palmer?
Aye.
Boderoot?
Yes.
Fairfield?
Yes.
Sabito?
Yes.
Meek?
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-287. And Clint Peters will also be making this presentation remotely.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Andres David Lopez Carbajal and Zeferino Lopez Carbajal for a reception facility in 03 zoning district on property described as lots 1 and 2, block 1, Div D Lee Gill subdivision, known as 1203 and 1205 League Street. By a vote of 10-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings and subject to the special provisions and conditions. The findings are that the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. 2, that the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area which is located. That the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties for the traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics that any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception, and that available community facilities and services, including the road system, providing access to the proposed use, are adequate for the proposed use. We did, based on our discussions at the work session, we did add 3 conditions onto the special permit. I believe those are handed out to your spots at the Bosque Theater. Those 3 include permittee shall comply with parking requirements set forth in Article 8 of Chapter 25 of the Code of Ordinances, which is the parking requirements, and then also shall comply with the noise requirements set forth in Article 7 of Chapter 16 of the Code of Ordinances, in that events at the reception facility shall end at 10 p.m.
Are there any questions for staff?
This Holmes, Clint, so these additional conditions aren't going to catch the applicant by surprise? I mean, or do we know on the, particularly that last one? The other 2 are just repeating code requirements, right?
That's correct. We were able to talk with the applicant between the 2 meetings, and they were okay with the 10 o'clock.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing. Did anyone register to speak on this item? Esmeralda, did anyone register to speak on this
Yes,
item? Okay. We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval with conditions.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye?
Palmer? Borderood?
Yes.
Fairfield?
Yes.
Sabido?
Yes.
Meek?
Yes. That motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-288.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution approving the final plan unit development plan phases 2 and 3 for the PUD property described as phase 2, which is being 7.969 acres of land in the James M. Conrad survey, abstract number 224, McLennan County, Texas, being out of a call of 28.616 acres of land in the deed to Chapel Land Holdings LLC. Recorded under McLennan County Clerk's File number 2019-030914 of the official public records in McLennan County, Texas, and phase 3 being at 8.221 acres of land out of the James M. Conrad survey, abstract number 224 in McLennan County, Texas, being out of the call 28.616 acres of land in a deed to Chapel Land Holdings LLC, recorded under McLennan County Clerk's File number 2019-030914. The official public records of McLennan County, Texas. By a vote of 10-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the final PUD plan based on the following findings and conditions. 1, the final PUD plan is consistent with the approved concept PUD plan, conditions of the approved concept PUD plan, and the requirements of the PUD ordinance. And 2, the circulation plan, public facilities and service plan, preliminary architectural plan, and site development and landscaping plans, including the final PUD, are adequate. We do have 2 conditions at the time of development. Full building plans must be submitted, meeting all City of Waco development requirements, including but not limited to the following: building code, site grading and drainage, parking signage, vehicle pedestrian access and circulation, landscaping, refuse location and access, and fire protection location and access. Building permits will not be issued until full compliance with all development standards of the City of Waco and approved PUD plans. And 2, the property must be platted meeting all requirements of the PUD and subdivision ordinance before the issuance of building permits.
Any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this item?
Yes, sir. We have a Nate Landreth who is available. I'll promote him to panelist now. Mr. Landrith, are you available? Are you on the line?
Hey, Nate.
Yeah, good evening, council. Here for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Nate?
Yes, sir, Mr. Landrith, this is Josh Borderud. I was following up on your final PUD plan here. Is this still intended to be more of a retirement-focused area?
It's, I would say, that's what's gonna essentially it will lead to. We're going for the small patio homes, small backyards, large common open space. I'd say 90% of the people that have inquired so far are looking for that kind of final home and kind of downsizing. Seems like that's definitely a need. The common areas we're trying to really make, walking trails and peaceful and water features and that sort of thing. So that's kind of our goal.
Thank you.
This is Holmes. Mr. Landrith, thanks for this. It seems like you've been responsive to neighborhood voices on this project. It's been a couple of years now, and we've had to make some changes as we go, and it seems like you've got the right project here. So I appreciate you being listening and responding and getting a project that works here.
Absolutely. Thank you. We're excited about it.
Any other questions for Mr. Landrith? Thanks, Nate. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Coming on. Esmeralda, did anyone else register to speak?
No, sir.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval.
Second?
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Palmer?
Aye.
Borderoud?
Yes.
Bearfield?
Yes.
Sabido? Yes. Meek?
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move on to public hearing 2021-289.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning and said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lots 6 and 7, Block V, the West End Addition, known as 2322 and 2324, Gorman Avenue, shall be changed from R3E district classification to become to be designated into O3 district classification, providing for penalties, providing severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public and required by law. By a vote of 10-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in O3 zoning. 3, the property meets all the area and width requirements for O3 zoning. 4, the proposed O3 zoning is compatible with the surrounding area.
Are there any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this item?
Yes, sir. We have Mary Wise, or Kathy Wise, who is available on the line now. Ms. Wise, are you?
Hey, Kathy.
Hi, I'm here just available for questions for Mission Waco. Thank you.
Any questions? All right. We appreciate it, Kathy. Thanks for joining in. We will, anyone else register to speak?
No, sir.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Palmer?
Aye.
Borderoud?
Yes.
Bearfield?
Yes.
Sabido?
Yes.
Meek?
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-290.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the comprehensive plan be amended to change the land use designation from medium-density residential office flex to mixed-use flex on property described as Lot 4, Block 68, University Heights Edition, known as 2412 Maple Avenue, and Lots 5, 6, and B7, Block 68, University Heights Edition, known as 1839 North 25th Street, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning and said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described above shall be changed from O3 to C2 district classification, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining that the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, the Plan Commission recommended disapproval of the land use designation change from medium-density residential office flex to mixed-use flex based on the following finding. The proposed use, the land use could be considered incompatible with the existing low-density residential land uses adjacent to the subject property. Plan Commission also recommended disapproval of the zone change based on the following findings. The proposed zoning is not in keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan, and the existing O3 zoning is more compatible with the adjacent residential uses than the proposed C2 zoning. Pursuant to state law and the zoning ordinance, if an application fails to receive a favorable report and recommendation by the Plan Commission, it shall not be approved except by a 3/4 vote of the members of City Council. In this case, the Plan Commission did not give favorable recommendation. Therefore, a 3/4 vote is required for approval of the request.
Any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this item?
Yes, Mayor and Council. Carlos Diaz, representing the applicant, is being moved into the panelist position. Mr. Diaz, are you on the line?
I am, and I am on video. Good evening, Council, Mayor, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Diaz, you have 3 minutes unless you're just...
Yes, members of the council, I'm representing Kaji Corporation. We're trying to, we applied for a land use change from an O3 to a C2. The planning commission, they sent us a disapproval. On the disapproval, they're saying that it doesn't conform to the neighborhood or the type of neighborhood that you would need for a C2. However, on their report to the north of my client's property, there is a C3. There is C3 property or zone that C3 property that's right in front of the St. Louis Catholic Church and Riker High School. There is a convenience store gas station there. That's about 3 blocks north, and then about 2 blocks south, there is one little bitty corner there where there's a restaurant there, and that is classified as a C2. So I don't see how my client's land request change would be, how it would prejudice that neighborhood, and that's what I'm here for. I'm asking the council to consider the Planning and Zoning Commission's decision and to approve this land change.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Any questions for Mr. Diaz? All right, thank you, Mr. Diaz. Esmeralda, did anyone else register to speak?
No, sir.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move for disapproval of both the land use designation change and the zoning change based on the findings found by the Plan Commission.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mayor, yes. Clint, can you verify Mr. Diaz's comments about couple blocks north and a couple of blocks south of this proposed location that's already C2 zoning?
Yes, 2 blocks to the north, there is a strip of land that's zone C3 in between 25th and 26th Street. And then 2 blocks to the south, there's a single lot that's rezoned C2 at the corner of Lasker and 25th Street.
So there is C2 zoning already in that area.
C3.
Correct.
C3, I thought. Is it C3 or C2?
C3 or C2, I'm sorry.
C3.
The properties to the north across from the church are C3, and then the single property to the south, 2 blocks is C2. The properties right around it that have mixed commercial zoning are O3 across the street, and then there's O3 a block away on Trice.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Any other discussion? Esmeralda, please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Palmer? Porterud?
Yes.
Bearfield?
Yes.
Sabido?
Yes.
Meek?
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-291.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lots A7, A8, B7, B8, 1, 2, 9, and 10, Block 3, the Teachers Edition, known as 421, 425, 427, and 429 Clifton Street, and 406 and 410 Phillip Street, lots A1, A5, A6, B5, B6, 7, 4A, E4, D4, 3, and B4, Block 1 of the George W. Witt Edition, known as 510 off Phillip Streets, and 507, 511, 513, 515, 517, 715, 719, and 725 Clifton Street, lots 31 and 32, Block 1 of the Witt Edition, known as 721 and 723 Clifton Street, and lots 5A and 6, Block 3, the Teachers Edition, known as 1306 Grant Street, shall be changed from C3 and R2 district classification, become to be designated O3 district classification, respectively. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding determined at the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 10-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in O3 zoning. 3, the property meets all the area and width requirements for O3 zoning. 4, the proposed O3 zoning is compatible with the surrounding area. And then 5, the O3 zoning brings the existing residential uses into conformance with the zoning ordinance.
Are there any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this item?
No, sir.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Bordereau.
Yes.
Fairfield. Sabido.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to 2021-292.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance, the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the comprehensive plan be amended to change the land use designation from urban residential to medium-density residential office flags on property described as lots 23 and 24, Block 9 of the Wiseman J. and Company Edition, known as 1101 and 1103 Vine Street, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed to certain property described above shall be changed from R2 to O3 district classification, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finally determining the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 9-1, Plan Commission recommended approval, land use designation change from urban residential to medium density residential office flex based on the following findings. 1, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for zoning districts allowed in the proposed land use designation. And 2, the property is located near a major street, which is Waco Drive. Plan Commission also recommended approval of the zone change based on the 3 findings that the proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan as revised, that the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in O3 zoning, and then once platted, the property meets all the area and width requirements for O3 zoning.
Are there any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak?
Yes, sir. I have Mr. James McCoy on the line. I'm going to move him over to a panelist. Mr. McCoy, are you on the line? Can you hear me? Mr. McCoy? Well, he was here. I may have lost him. Mr. McCoy? I can call him.
That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Mr. McCoy, this is Esmeralda.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
I'm here. I can hear you, yes.
Great. The city council can hear you, and you have 3 minutes to speak on your item.
I recently retired from service at Waco Housing Authority after 26 years. And I have some friends that I've become acquainted with who have businesses that they're trying to start, and they don't have a location in order to operate from. So I wanted to build a fourplex on that property to accommodate 4 people who up to now don't have anywhere to run their businesses out of. It's basically going to be a new structure. An architect will be drawing up the plans for it, and I think it's something that's needed in the area. It's in the proximity of 3 schools, Geo Wiley, Rappaport Academy, and J.H. Hines. And I think it would be great to have students in that area be able to see that there's something going on in the community that is constructive and something is being produced there. We won't have any food supplies, any hair care products, or any liquor stores. It'll strictly be where people are using it as commissary for their existing business.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We appreciate that. Are there anyone else registered to speak?
No, sir.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a quick thought. I think as this council has discussed to infinity and beyond, we are very protective of our neighborhoods. And I think prior to hearing from my colleagues on council and hearing from Mr. McCoy, I was leaning against this just because I think we really do need to be so protective of housing in our core. However, as a social worker, I also believe that every person is the expert of their own experience, and seeing that Councilmember Bearfield and 2 of the neighborhood associations are in support of this, and this is from someone who has a long history of investing in Waco, that gives me a reason that this is a unique venture that's worth supporting and worth moving ahead. So for that reason, I will be voting in affirmation of it.
Any other discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer. Aye. Borderoot.
Yes.
Bearfield.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-293.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the city of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the city of Waco be amended by revising section 28-247 and chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed to a certain property described as lot 6A, 7A, 8A, and A, Block 1 of the High Point Edition, known as 6301 Sylvia Avenue, shall be changed from R1B and M2 district classification and become and be designated in O3 district classification, providing for findings and determining, or providing for a severability clause and determining, I'm sorry, let me start that over. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finally determining that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 10-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in O3 zoning. 3, the property meets all the area and width requirements for O3. And 4, the proposed O3 zoning is compatible with the surrounding area.
Are there any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this item?
No, sir.
We'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval on first reading.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Borderoot.
Yes.
Bearfield. Sabido.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-294.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance abandoning a portion of right-of-way located at the end of Waco Drive near Texas Central Parkway, described as a 1.557 acre right-of-way situated in the PM Maxwell Survey, abstract number 576, McLennan County, Texas, and being all of that called 70-foot wide and 1.56 acre right-of-way dedicated as shown on the final plat of Texas Central South Edition. Lot 3, Block 3 is recorded in McLennan County Clerk's file number 2001, 39, 158 official public records in McLennan County, Texas, and authorizing the city manager to execute quitclaim deeds, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting in which this ordinance passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 10-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of abandonment based on the following findings and conditions. The two findings: of public use of the right-of-way is not required for proper flow of traffic or for emergency vehicle access to the area, and the utility access for surrounding properties is not adversely impacted by the abandonment of the right-of-way. We do have two conditions: that all existing water and wastewater easements be retained by the city of Waco, or these utilities must be relocated at developer's expense for the area of the abandoned right-of-way. And two, a new cul-de-sac must be built and right-of-way dedicated at the end of the reconfigured Waco Road as part of the platting process for the development.
Are there any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this item?
No, sir.
We'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Porterud.
Yes.
Bearfield.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-295.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance abandoning a 20-foot alley located between Bridge Street and Taylor Avenue, described as being all of that tract of land in McLennan County, Texas, being all of a 20-foot wide alley in Block 23 of the H and TC Railroad addition to the city of Waco, as recorded in volume 186, page 396 of the deed records of McLennan County, Texas, and authorizing the city manager to execute quitclaim deeds, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining that the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a 10-0 vote, Plan Commission recommended approval of abandonment based on the following findings and conditions. Public use of the right-of-way is not required for proper flow of traffic or for emergency vehicle access to the area, and utility access for surrounding properties not adversely impacted by abandonment of the right-of-way. The two conditions are easements, water and wastewater easements to be retained by the city of Waco for the area of the abandoned right-of-way, and the applicant must provide an exhibit field notes for each portion of the abandoned alley needed for associated quitclaim deeds.
Are there any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak?
No, sir.
Close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Porterud.
Yes.
Bearfield.
Yes.
Sabido. Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we made it through 12 public hearings. Buddy. We'll now move to the consent agenda. I believe we received a speaker card on resolutions 2021-297, which we will, is that correct, Esmeralda?
That is correct.
And we will remove that from the consent agenda and vote on that separately. Is there a motion on, well, I guess we'll have the speaker now, is that correct?
And it's actually from Ms. Jeanette Bell, and she isn't available to be here, but she wanted me to say for the record that she wants it to be known that the Northeast Riverside Neighborhood Association is in favor of this resolution, and she was in favor of 292 public hearing as well.
Very good. Is there a motion on resolution 2021-297?
Move for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Porterud.
Yes.
Bearfield.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to the remaining consent agenda, which consists of resolutions 2021-296 through 2021-318, with the exception of resolution 2021-297. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer. Porterud.
Yes.
Bearfield.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move on to ordinance 2021-319.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, reestablishing standards of care for City of Waco youth programs, repealing all previous ordinances or parts of ordinance in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, and finally determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on May 4th, 2021.
Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Porterud.
Yes.
Fairfield. Yes. Sabido.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes. The motion carries, and we'll move to the hearing of visitors. Are there any registered speakers for the hearing of visitors?
No, sir.
All right, we will now close the hearing of visitors. Are there any council member reports, committees, boards, or commission liaison visits? If not, are there any council requests for future agenda items? All right, we will not adjourn because we are going to go into another executive session. And so we will now recess the business session and adjourn to executive session. Is that right?
Recess the business session for executive session. Is that right, Esmeralda?
To be read. Mm-hmm.
Be read into the record by Esmeralda.
Notice is hereby given, the city council will go into executive session in accordance with the following provisions, and I'm just going to read them all for certainty. 1, attorney briefing, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071. A, Jose Gonzalez versus Timothy Barrett at Juan Avila. Civil action number 620-CV at 00782, pending in the United States District Court for the Western District of Texas, Waco Division. B, Alfred Chambers versus City of Waco, cause number 2020-3217-5, pending in the 414th District Court, McLennan County, Texas. 2, real property, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072. 3, economic development, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087. And 4, personnel, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.074. Well, that's been done. We are now in executive session at 6:50 p.m.
Very good. There being no further, we will reconvene the business session at 7:42 p.m. There being no further business, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:42 p.m.